A very special good evening and welcome to another edition of Petroleum 101 on Kaieteur Radio. Good evening to you wherever you are tuned in to Kaieteur Radio from. My name is Shikema and this evening I will be joined by Mr. Kemol King, Senior Journalist of Kaieteur News, and alongside Ms. Mikaila Prince, Journalist of Kaieteur News. So this evening we will have a very interactive session and our topic is the quest for transparency. So before we jump right into our discussion, I'd just like to remind the viewers and listeners that we are tuned in. We are live on Kaieteur Radio's Facebook page, on our Facebook page. So you can send us a comment or any question as it relates to our topic, or you can also call us on
226-7453.
Yes, or you can send us a text or a WhatsApp message on
622-2222.
All right, over to you, Mr. Kemol King.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Shikema. I think by now I should say that this isn't just my show, because you guys have been helping me carry it for a very long time now. The quest for transparency, the topic for tonight's show, it is one that Kaieteur News has been wrestling with for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's reading the paper has seen that we have been at the forefront in fighting for getting details out to the public, mm-hmm. information that should be in the public under both administrations. So there are two critical subtopics we're going to discuss in this quest for transparency. And the first one is beneficial ownership, mm-hmm. and the second one is going to be the Redford Report. Mm-hmm. So great that I have both of you here, people who have been reporting on this very thing to help the public understand why it's critical that they be informed about these aspects of the oil and gas sector. So, Mikaila, why don't you tell us a little bit about Guyana's membership with the EITI, what that means, and what is required of us, and then maybe tell the public a little bit about beneficial ownership.
Thank you, Kemol. Now, just some
housekeeping.
Some housekeeping rules regarding what the EITI is. Now, that's an acronym for Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, mm-hmm. and it is a worldwide institution, agency, mm-hmm. that members join onto, and they promote transparency in the extractive industry, particularly with the oil and gas. But they do pay a lot of attention as well to the mining and the bauxite and all of that.
Yes.
And so Guyana is a member of that institution, and as one of the requirements, you have to sign on to a register, a transparency register, where you reveal the beneficial owners of all of the oil blocks and all of the mining concessions at a certain period. And with the election saga and all that followed, there was a delay by the government to bring forth the information with that register. And we did hear some assurances from Vice President Dr. Bar Jagdeo that, we're not going to make it in time to reveal the beneficial owners of the mining concessions, but we will seek to do so with the oil blocks. Mm-hmm. And just to enlighten the listeners and the viewers, beneficial ownership. Let me just put it in simpler terms, like my boss likes to do. You have a business that sells apples or any type of fruit, mm-hmm. and now you might have your son register. He is the person that registers the business at the deeds registry, saying, okay, John Smith owns this business, but John Smith is not actually getting the money. Mm-hmm. The money is going to somebody else, and they are the beneficial owners. Okay. They are the ones reaping all of the revenue and the benefits, as the name stipulates, beneficialship owner. Beneficial owner, what I said there. So in 2020, in November 2020, Vice President, during one of his press engagements, he said that the government will seek to release the names, or will seek out the names of the beneficial owners of the oil blocks, namely the Kaieteur and the Kanji blocks. And Kaieteur News has written extensively. My colleague, Mr. Kemol King, he did a very extensive, many articles on this, the award of these two blocks. And after we were kicking up a storm, because every single day we had stories banging, the vice president, he came out and he said, we're going to seek out these things because we are a government for transparency and accountability. However, it has been 5 months since that promise was made by Vice President Jack Dio, and the press, the country is still waiting on any sort of headway into the release of those beneficial owners.
Okay, and I think when we come to the Kaieteur and Kanji conversation, the discourse around it has been very contentious for a very long time because Kaieteur News has been carrying a very strong line on it. There has been a lawsuit, and we know what came of that because our publisher has some very strong positions on the beneficial ownership situation surrounding the Kanji and Kaieteur blocks. And I think we're still in a situation where I think it's been years of reporting on Kanji and Kaieteur, and we still don't know who the beneficial owners are. And as Kaieteur News has pointed out in its reporting, there are many red flags which are yet to be addressed. So that is the first issue tonight, the issue of beneficial ownership. We'd love to take more questions from the public if anybody is a little hazy on what beneficial ownership is and why it's critical. So, but while we wait on your calls, we're going to move on to the second topic, which is the Redford Report. Shikema has done some reporting on this. So why don't you go ahead, Shikema?
All right, thank you, Kemol. It's funny, Mikaila, when you said that it has been 5 months since the promise was made to release the names of the beneficial owners for these oil blocks, because it has been also exactly 5 months since the Payara agreement was signed, and there has been no evidence, the Redford Report is still hidden from the public. So just to give you a bit of background on what the Redford Report is. So the government, after coming into office, they hired this Canadian woman, Miss Alison Redford, to do a review of the Payara license. That is before it was approved. So this woman did the review, and the findings were put into this report. And afterwards, I think it was 2 months after her report was done, government approved the Payara license. But the details of her report were still hidden. And I know Kaieteur News, we have done many articles, Kemol, you and Kiana as well, senior journalist of Kaieteur News. We have done many articles asking government when they're going to make these findings public, but we have received no word on that.
Okay. So there is also a little bit about Miss Redford's past that I'm going to go into.
Yeah, I'd let you talk about that because you have.
And this is critical to this conversation. That's because if you are going to hire someone to do some work for your country, especially to review something as monumental and as costly as the $9 billion Payara project, then you have to have someone with integrity. And so it is typical that when a government decides on hiring consultants, it does due diligence checks on the persons to ensure that there is nothing in their background that would influence them or that would indicate that they may not do work that is above board. So there's a lot in Miss Redford's past that is questionable, and I'll tell you about two of them. Miss Redford was a politician. A few years ago, she served as the premier of Alberta, which is a province in Canada. And I guess you can say that it's sort of a governor of Alberta, if you want to find a term that the Guyanese public would be more familiar with. And while she was Premier of Alberta, she went to a funeral of someone in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And when she went to that funeral, there were criticisms over her using state funds to fund this expensive private flight. And there were so many criticisms surrounding during Miss Redford's tenure in office, the way she used state funds. Once they had accused her of trying to turn a public office space into private living quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And so the issue of the flight that I mentioned, using public funds, there was a lot of criticism from the people of Alberta about that. So much that they called on Miss Redford to give the money back to the public purse, because the lines were beginning to be blurred between your duty in office as Premier of Alberta and you deciding that maybe I'm going to use public funds as something to prop up my personal life, my lavish lifestyle, right? So the pressure in Alberta was so much that eventually she decided to give back the money to the public purse. And when she did that, she had to issue a public apology for the way she acted. Later on, Miss Redford resigned just before the Attorney General could produce a report on her spending practices. And the findings of the Attorney General's report, they were extremely damning. They accused her of being corrupt, essentially. And, you know, the second issue I'm going to talk about would delve into that word corrupt a little bit more. So we have Alison Redford, who is reviewing a $9 billion ExxonMobil project. And one of the things you look for when you would select someone like that is Miss Redford someone who has worked for ExxonMobil before?
Connected to them in
Was
any
she
way.
ever connected to ExxonMobil? Because if I say I'm a teacher in a classroom and I tell Mikaila and Shikema to exchange their test papers and mark each other's test papers, it would be foolish of me because I know Shikema and Mikaila are friends. And I know that Shikema is just going to change Mikaila's incorrect answers to the correct ones and give her 100%.
That is correct.
So this is what we found ourselves in this case in the handling of the project by Miss Redford. So Miss Redford was found to have benefited from donations from an ExxonMobil subsidiary to her party while she served as a politician in Alberta, Canada. So you're with a party that's getting Exxon money. So that blurs the lines. How much integrity could you bring to your review of this project? And now we're in this situation in Guyana where she has to review a project that costs $9 billion US dollars. Now, the public did not know that she benefited from ExxonMobil subsidiary donations until after the Payar project was approved. But when we pointed out, when Kaieteur News pointed it out, there was no response from the government. It seemed like the government was not concerned about her past. And there were concerns about Ms. Redford's qualifications when the government did announce that she was chosen to conduct the review of this project, right? So,
I believe there was no evidence of her ever having reviewed any license, any oil license for that matter.
you're right, there was no evidence of that. So now we're in this situation where, and How many months has it been, Shikema?
It has been
5.
exactly 5 months since
Since the pilot project was approved,
and
or
since-
since the government promised that it would
since the
publish the
government
information from the
promised that they
report.
would be publishing the report, the
So it
entire
was
report.
Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Vikram Bharat. He's the one that said to Kaieteur News journalist Kiana Wilberg that we understand that there have been issues with the review of this project in the past, and that was under the former government, the APNU AFC government. And so he said to her, we're going to make sure that we publish the findings of this study. Where is it?
The government, I think one of their pillars was about being transparent and keeping everything in the open, yet we don't know who the beneficial owners are for those oil blocks, and we're still waiting for the Redford Report. So why say one thing and do another thing?
Just
So-
a question, Kemol.
Yeah.
As a government, and I know you're not a member of the government, but as you know, as a standard requirement, do you know if the government is if they are supposed to do due diligence on the people that they hire and the institutions that they hire, especially if you're going to review, like you said, a monumental project like a $9 billion US project?
Well, it's a no-brainer.
I was just about to say that's a given, because you're supposed to do the diligence on these people, because you're paying them lots of money, and the size of priority, the amount of money they have to expend, we know what is at stake. So of course they would want somebody with a clean background who can give a fair analysis, a fair review of the project.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We gave a cursory explanation of the Redford Report and on the issue of beneficial ownership. So we're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to come back and start addressing some of the questions and some of the comments. But before we go, Mikaila, could you just remind the public how they can contact us?
Sure. You can call us on 226-7453. That's 226-7453. The lines are open. And you can send us a text or a WhatsApp. A lot of people always call the number.
Yeah.
But we only we only view the text or the WhatsApp messages on 622-2222. And yeah, we'll be right back and to continue discussion right here.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Guyana, please join me on the Glenn Lal Show, 99.1, 99.5, Kaieteur, every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast of the next day at 11 a.m. just in case you miss that program.
Hi all, welcome back to Petroleum 101, our show here on Kaieteur Radio, where every Tuesday we teach you the basics about your oil and gas sector. Now, we have two questions that have come in, and I suppose we can only take two before we run out of time. So I'm going to ask the first one to Mikaila Prince. This person wants to know, why is it so important that we know who the beneficial owners are? You know,
Yeah.
who cares who owns the companies or who owns the blocks?
That's a very important question there, Kemol. Now, it is very important to know, for the public to know, who beneficial owners are of natural assets, to ascertain whether these blocks or these companies are headed by people in the public eye, namely ministers and people, within the government. Now, as a minister or as a vice president or, anybody in the public eye, there's no reason why you should be a beneficial owner of an oil block, An oil block belongs to the people of the country.
Okay, but why not? Why can't a politician own an oil block?
Okay.
I'm being devil's advocate. Go ahead.
A politician, you are a politician. You are supposed to be governing the
Sector fairly?
and to maintain. It would be very selfish of a politician to acquire a block, an asset for himself, so that only he can gain the money, when in fact the money needs to be distributed to all of the citizens of the country. Yes. So it would be unfair is not the right word, but it's not right for a politician to be a beneficial owner of a national asset.
And we could point to examples in Africa where there are presidents and energy ministers. We can talk about the case of Dana Tete, who was embroiled in the $1.1 billion corruption bribery scandal. And what we found out is that over $1 billion was funneled from oil companies to an exchange for the ownership of a lucrative oil block.
Just to add to that, on why it's so hard sometimes to ascertain the beneficial owners. See, these people have accounts set up in secrecy jurisdictions like the Cayman Islands and some places in Europe where they are not allowed to divulge information. So it is a very secure jurisdiction where when you set up an account there, people, agencies, companies, corporations can funnel their dirty money into your account, and a government cannot question it because these people protect your interests, and that plays a very big reason in. And I think with the Kaieteur and Kanji block, or was it the Kanji block? One of the companies is set up in a secrecy jurisdiction in the Cayman Islands.
Yes.
So it's very hard to get information.
Okay, thank you, Mikaila.
Yes.
I'll move to Shikema for the next question. This person wants to know, Payara was approved months ago. Why is it so important that we get the findings of the Redford Report now? Doesn't it seem as though everything turned out fine?
Okay, so to answer your question, Kemol, I know you gave a very detailed insight on Miss Redford being connected to ExxonMobil. And I can point to a story I did the other day where the vice president said that leading up to the Payara agreement, the approval of the Payara agreement, government was being pressured by Exxon. They were under enormous pressure, his words, from Exxon to approve the Payara license. Now, Guyana was warned by a host of oil experts and good governance advocates to not rush the approval of Payara. They wanted Guyana to use it as leverage to get more favorable terms for the country. But according to the vice president, they were being pressured by Exxon to either give us the approval now or you risk losing value. And Payara is $9 billion US, so that's a lot of money. And they did not want to lose that investment. So they just forged ahead with the Payara approval.
Now that you mention it, I think I would have wanted to know how much more value could Guyana have gleaned, or how much more protection could it have gotten if Guyana had just a bit more time? And how much in that Redford report, that controversial Redford report, could have gotten Guyana said value?
Well, from the stories that I've seen by experts, oil experts, we all know that the Starbuck block contract is very unfair. So what they were saying is with this Payara license, they could have gotten more favorable terms, better terms. They could have probably gotten a better deal, a whole new deal, if they had just used Payara and leveraged Payara and held it back and bargained with Exxon. They probably would have gotten more favorable terms. But then we hear that they're saying that they were under pressure from Exxon.
Just to add to that, Shikema, Vice President Jagdeo, during one of his press conferences last year, shortly after the signing of the approval of the Pyro license, he said, if you thought that we would have used this license as leverage, that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And that's
I remember.
quoting him.
Yeah.
So just to give some context to that,
Okay.
those details.
Thank you very much. So these are two critical issues. And I think as people who've been writing these stories about transparency over the past few months, transparency or the lack of transparency, how you want to describe it, it's not confined to the issues of the Redford Report and the beneficial ownership
So much
register
more.
alone.
Yeah.
There's so much more. I feel like every few days I have written a story saying 2 months later, 5 months
Yeah.
later, after a promise has been made and we don't have the report, right? So this is where we are, and it is critical that the people, not just the reporters, call up the representatives and make demands for these very important reports to be put out into the public. The oil reports, the Redford reports, register of beneficial owners, so we can ensure that the dirty money is not passing through the system. All right? So we've come down to the end of Petroleum 101 tonight. And I want to tell the public, in addition to thanking you for tuning in tonight, to tune in again next week, Tuesday, because we will have a special program next week. All right? So without further ado, I'm Kemol King.
Hi, Mikaila Prince.
And I'm Shikema Day.